In war, there are enemies that aren't traditional targets. In the cauldron of war, supplies, obstacles, tanks, and buildings can be just as much of an enemy as a soldier. So special explosives were designed and deployed to better tackle these logistical foes. There are two main forms of these explosives. Take incendiary thermites and plastic explosives. Most of these are well known to the general public at this time. Now, the original incendiary was Greek fire, which is a legendary form of napalm. Napalm being a gelid form of oil or gasoline that creates sticky polymer chains when burned and typically suffocates the victim before it burns them completely. Napalm has uses against military material targets and poison gases or neurotoxins due to the high continuous heat and sticky nature. Thermite, on the other hand, is a metal powder mixed with a metal oxide, commonly iron and aluminum, but titanium, magnesium, and even silicon can be used. The inclusion of a built-in oxidizer means the reaction continues as long as the fuel mix is available, and the specific chemistry can release incredible heat, at least enough to melt both materials. Modern incendiary grenades use something called a thermate, which is a combination of thermite and other chemicals that lower the activation or ignition energy of the initial thermite, making them far easier to ignite. It is relatively well known that thermite burns hot, and in this case it is in excess of 4,000 degrees Fahrenheit. Now, due to the Geneva Convention, these grenades are only meant for destroying military equipment, and have been used to that effect since World War II, with the specific engagement being Pointe du Hoc during the Normandy landings. Now, thermite firebombs were built but rarely used in World War I for use against troops, and Vietnam using more napalm than thermite. Now, for the anti-materiel purpose, traditionally this means deploying them in the breeches of guns, engine blocks, or next to more sensitive explosives. In the Great Resource War, however, there is no such restriction on the use of thermal weapons, and thus we enter the Army-Navy TAC 205 Mike Model 0531 incendiary grenade. This grenade probably used magnesium alloys to form sticky burning metal globs, which were used to clear out foxholes, bunkers, and probably tanks in the same way as a napalm Molotov cocktail, but far, far hotter. Fallout Tactics is the only other game with proper military incendiary grenades, and they fill the same niche of anti-soldier destruction as a frag grenade. Plastic explosives, on the other hand, owe their existence to the British and the Germans. A sad truth, but it is true. The main explosive in the compositions leading up to and including C4 is RDX, which stands for Research Department Explosives. Now, this was first reported in Germany in 1898 by George Henning by a more chemical name, although he only reported the medical benefits like with nitroglycerin. It wasn't until it got a new name as hexogen by the Germans in 1920 did the explosive properties, as well as cheaper ways to manufacture it, were investigated. Now, RDX mixtures, as well as the name, were found in the 1930s in Woolwich at the Royal Arsenal to make something to combat the German U-boat menace. Now, RDX can be mixed with other explosives to form hybrids, with more desired properties, as a mostly pure RDX compound needs a high energy charge to cause the brick of plastic to explode. Now, C4, as we know it, was formulated in 1956, and was the fourth composition of the explosive, hence the name. It has since been favored as an explosive for its insensitivity and generated force. C4 is generally used in most explosive devices, but the 1 1/4 pound bricks, called the Mike 112 Demolition charges, are used just for that purpose, demolition. There is truly not much to say about C4 that isn't already common knowledge, and even after 121 years of service, C4 entered the end of the world old, but proud. And even after 200 years of storage, it still packs a punch. Now, these are two quite different devices used for the same end in modernity, but in Fallout they are both used for wanton destruction. The incendiary grenade, which despite its name is still an explosive weapon, deals 1 damage on impact, plus 50 from the explosion in a 450 unit range, which is half that of a frag grenade. It has a lingering burn of 6 damage per second for 15 seconds, which is a total of 90 damage. So in all, it can harm and burn for 140 damage, which makes them somewhat impressive for a flame weapon, but the impact nor the explosion is affected by the Pyromaniac perk. They can be thrown quite quickly, however, but fire sources don't stack, so it's best to use them and wait out the timer. At 0.65 throws per second, which is the usual rate, and an AP cost of 24, they are just like most of the others, but are a great initiator and can kill most low-level enemies with just the burn. C4, on the other hand, is for the big booms, requiring the use of a detonator or a bullet to detonate, the latter being unlike reality. The 4 blocks of Mike 112 deal 250 damage to any poor unfortunate sucker in a range of 512 units, second in the base game after the time bomb. Luckily, the detonator is also an improved holdout weapon, but it will detonate all the player-placed C4 charges in the area. Now at most, a block of C4 can only be thrown once every 3 seconds, but it won't go off from some random passerby. However, if you throw, say, 5 C4s on 1 brick of C4, the C4 will detonate as it is an internal health of 5. Now, despite the C4 charge being made of at least 4 blocks of Mike 112, which each weigh 1 1/4 pounds, it only weighs half a weight, same as the Incendiary grenade. Now, both require 50 explosives to throw, without sway, not that it matters for the C4. As for the strength, the Incendiary grenade needs 2, while the C4 is only 1. Now, both are definitely mid-range explosives, but they are unique among their peers, while the detonator can be used with no skill requirement at all, given its nature of just being a switch. But what isn't nice about is the price. Incendiary grenades are 200 caps apiece, and almost always found in the inventory of merchants. While C4 is rarer, it can be found in small quantities all over the Mojave, mainly as quests or storytelling. But if you buy or sell, there is a cost. At a value of 1,000 caps, it is the most expensive consumable explosive weapon. The detonator, on the other hand, is cheap, at only 25 caps, and you only ever need one as long as you don't lose it. Incendiary grenades are sold nearly anywhere civilization exists, Legion assassins using them, as well as the big one, Legate Lanius. The Ruby Hill Mine and Silver Peak Mine also have explosive crates that could have some example of these grenades, but the same could be said of any similarly labeled crates. C4, on the other hand, has a laundry list of places. The Vault 34 Armory, Vault 19 but hidden, the Black Mountain Storage Shed, an unmarked location on the Colorado, an aforementioned Silver Peak Mine, and a set crate behind a fence, Legionary Assassins, No Paw Cave, and most weapon vendors from Novak to New Vegas, but sometimes even Chet can sell them. Detonators can be found in Vault 34 as well, and in a briefcase in the Lucky 38 Casino, but they can be bought where C4 is bought, but not always at the same time. Now, the Incendiary grenade seems fairly weak, requiring a total of 15 seconds to reach its full damage potential. But combined with a mine that cripples incoming enemy legs, the Incendiary grenade could be used to slowly whittle down a large group of geckos with one bat's throw, for example. But the price makes it hard to justify buying a stockpile, as the frag grenades do the same job faster and cheaper. And without the explosion damage being incendiary, it has no stacking perk potential, as the incendiary damage starts to fall off compared to the demolition expert perk on frag grenades. Now, C4, on the other hand, allows for silent assassinations in neutral or friendly areas, especially when you can sneak it in. While it is expensive, it can make some quests extremely easy, and allow for some kills with no retribution. In this way, the courier can play both sides of a quest, or a faction, at least for a little while. In the end, while the incendiary grenade joins a lot of minds as being disappointing, the C4 is by far one of the most versatile and usable explosives in the entire game.